Hey there.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. It's the end of summer, the tail end.
Thank God.
I'm getting this accommodation paperwork so that I can not commute on days when there's an air quality alert. And of course, the air quality alerts are going to be coming to an end very, very shortly, probably about the time my
Yeah,
claim's approved, but at least it'll be in for next year.
yeah. I am apparently on the books as a fully remote employee, which is why during our employee training that everyone has to do every year, it's usually stuff like, here's our security stuff, here's our harassment policy.
Right.
Apparently, this year for people who are not fully remote, there was an active shooter thing, like what to do if there's an active shooter.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. We had one of those at HBO like so long ago, almost 10 years ago, but they were really proactive about emergencies. We got a go bag, like a high
Wow.
vis, yeah, bright green go bag filled with MREs and plastic bags full of water that never expired.
Wow.
First aid, yeah, it was packed out. It was sumptuous as these things go. And I think it was because of the blackout in 2003.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I spent the night on the floor of our
I,
the home office.
I know. Meanwhile, my landlord was convinced it was my fault for running the air conditioner and the toaster oven at the same time.
And you took out the entire Northeast.
He was this old Italian guy, and yeah, it wasn't until the rest of the East Coast went out that he finally let go of that idea. But anyway, we've got Wisteria Lodge. Welcome to Goodnight, Mr. Holmes, a podcast about the Granada Sherlock Holmes, which ran on ITV in the UK between 1984 and 1994, and ran on Masterpiece Mystery in the US around the same time. I am Laura.
And I'm Rachel.
And as mentioned, we're looking at episode 23 in the series called Wisteria Lodge.
The story was first published in Collier's in 1908.
There were a lot more venues for short stories back then.
Yeah.
Hell, even in the 70s.
Yeah. I was just going to say, even in the 60s and 70s, there was
Yeah.
a lot more.
Yep. So the episode opens, a train is pulling into a station. We've got a man who's looking out of one of the windows of the station. We see a young woman who's greeting two young girls dressed in white who are coming off the train, and she's, hugging them and saying something about how they've grown. And she pauses and looks up at the man in the station window who smiles a little sadly. There's another woman behind him who we never see again. And she ducks away very quickly upon seeing the woman with the girls. And the woman and the girls get into a carriage with a couple of men and they drive away. Meanwhile, on that same train, a man disembarks. He's got these bushy gray mutton chops and he's wearing a top hat. He's greeted by the man who had been looking through the window, who was wearing a blue scarf. And we learn that Mr. Mutton Chops is Mr. They call him Eccles in the episode. I pronounce it Eccles, but...
Oh, really? I've only ever heard it pronounced Eccles.
Okay. And Mr. Blue Scarf is a Mr. Garcia.
Fun fact about Mr. Eccles, that actor played Watson in the Ian Richardson version of Hound of the Baskervilles.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not look him up. I looked up everybody else. Oh my God, I'm so glad you did that. So Garcia speaks with a Spanish accent, and he offers to carry Eccles's valise, which is a leather Gladstone bag, which I love. Not very portable, but I still love them. They're very stylish. They set off in a trap and drive into the countryside of Surrey. So Surrey is near Windsor Castle. So we're to the southwest of London, pretty much due south from Heathrow Airport, which of course didn't exist at the time. And we learn that Eccles is interested in old maps. He's, in the trap, he's offering to show Garcia's some of them in a large portfolio that he's carrying.
Yeah, he goes on and on and on about
Yes.
Surrey. He has an entire collection of Surrey maps. Like, he must be a real hit at parties.
Right.
He mentions he has maps from Mull and Ogilvy. The Mull map is from 1844. It's very detailed, has little vignettes around the map. Ogilvy was also a map maker. I couldn't find his Surrey map online.
Okay. So they pull up in front of a large house, and apparently this is Garcia's, and Eccles is staying there for a while. At 221B, Holmes is standing dramatically at the fireplace. He's got his back to us. He's slapped a folded paper against the wall above the mantle, and we can see Watson's reflection in the mirror that sits on the mantle. And Holmes is saying, I suppose, Watson, we must look upon you as a man of letters. How do you define the word grotesque? Strange, remarkable, Watson says, and Holmes whirls around. No. Surely there's more to it than that. Some underlying suggestion of the tragic, the terrible, if you cast your mind back to those narratives with which you've inflicted upon a long-suffering public. Excuse me.
Got to get that dig in.
I know, yes.
As somebody said in a show that I watched last night, your tongue is like a shovel, the way you keep getting digs at me.
I like that, yes. And Holmes says, you will see how often the word grotesque has deepened the criminal. I suppose the affair of the red-headed man was grotesque enough at the outset, or that most grotesque affair of the 5 orange pips, Watson says.
Which wasn't adapted in the show because what could the letters KKK mean is kind of hilarious these days.
Exactly. Watson is wearing this beautiful paisley velvet smoking jacket with like green lapels, and the jacket itself is kind of a brownish. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And he's puffing on a cigarette, like smoke is everywhere. Yes, which led straight to a murderous conspiracy. No, the word puts me on alert, Holmes says, and he's reading from the paper, which is a letter. I've just had the most incredible and grotesque experience. May I consult you? Scott Eccles, Post Office, Charing Cross. And he hands the letter to Watson. The Charing Cross post office was open 24/7 back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know there were, is it mail deliveries or newspapers that were several times a day back then?
Mail deliveries, for sure. I'm sorry. I've got a big canker sore on my tongue, so I'm not like articulating the way I normally do because I'm injured. Anyway, so he hands the letter to Watson, and yes, they did get post several times a day. Is it a man or a woman? Watson says, completely ignoring the name on the signature. Scott is pretty unambiguously a man's name. A man, Holmes says. No woman would send a reply paid telegram. She would have come.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that. So let's just move on.
Right, yeah, stereotype. Sweep it under the wicker sofa. So Watson smiles at this. Will you see him? Oh, my dear Watson, you know how bored I've been since we locked up Colonel Carruthers. Life is commonplace. The newspapers are sterile. Audacity and romance seem to have passed forever from the criminal world. Of course I'll see him.
He flings up the newspapers.
Yes, he throws all the sections of the newspaper up into the air. And my note on this one is Brett is really hamming it up in this episode. And the doorbell rings downstairs, and Holmes says, unless I'm very much mistaken, this is our client. He opens the door. Mrs. Hudson is not in this episode. So some invisible person is ushering Scott Eccles up the stairs. Eccles pops in. He's played by an actor named Donald Churchill, who was a playwright in addition to being an actor.
Oh.
He died 3 years after this episode in Spain, of all places.
Wow.
Where he was filming another show for Granada.
Wow.
Yeah. Mr. Holmes. Well, are you Mr. Holmes? Certainly. Yes, Mr. Holmes, I have just had a most singular and unpleasant experience. Never in my life have I been subject to such embarrassment and been placed in such a position. And Eccles is very flustered and out of sorts.
You're talking a mile a minute.
Yes. Please sit down, Mr. Scott Eccles, and my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson. And he, Brett is like gesturing at him. In the first place, may I ask, why have you come to me at all? And Holmes is kind of declaiming. He's been a little shouty kind of throughout the whole opening of this episode.
Yeah.
Well, sir, it didn't appear to be a matter which concerned the police. Yet, when you've heard the facts, you must admit I couldn't just leave it where it was. Now, the private detectives, they are a class with whom I have no sympathy. Sit, Holmes shouts.
Yeah, technically Holmes is a private detective, whatever.
Yes. And then he kind of growls, Mr. Scott Eccles. and he keeps referring to him by his full name throughout this whole episode. Eccles sits down on that weird wicker sofa. Nonetheless, having heard your name, quite so, Holmes bellows. I decided, and Holmes cuts him off. Now, in the second place, why did you not come to me at once? What do you mean? Eccles says. Well, it is now 2:15. Your telegram was dispatched about 1. No one could glance at your toilet and attire without seeing that your disturbance dates from the moment of your waking. But you're right, Mr. Holmes. I never gave a thought to my toilet. I was only so glad to get out of such a house, Eccles says. And Watson offers him a cigarette. Eccles refuses. Watson's got smoking on the brain in this scene.
He's also got alcohol on the brain.
Yes. Well, as always.
Mm-hmm.
You see, but I've been running around making inquiries before I came here. Inquiries, I should say. I called up the house agents, Oh, yes. And they said Mr. Garcia's rent was paid up, all right, and that everything was in order in Wisteria Lodge. Come, sir. You are like my friend Watson, who has the bad habit of telling his stories wrong and foremost. Now, please arrange your thoughts and let me know in their due sequence exactly what those events are which have set you out unbrushed, unkempt, with your dress boots and waistcoat buttoned awry in search of advice and assistance. And we see, Eccles kind of examining himself and acknowledging that, yeah, he's kind of put himself together carelessly. Well, I'm a bachelor, and being of a sociable turn, I cultivate a large number of friends who hopefully are interested in maps. And we flash back to a different country house. There are all kinds of country houses in this episode. At the table of one of them recently, I met a young fellow named Garcia, a pleasant chap of Spanish descent, connected in some way with the embassy. We discovered a common interest in cartography, or so I thought. That's the study of old maps, as if we didn't know. The plan was to retrace Surrey as Thomas Moule engraved it some 50 years ago. Well, as soon as I arrived yesterday evening, I knew something was wrong. The atmosphere of the place, the house was tumbled down, depressing. Garcia told me he had a wonderful cook, a half-breed he had picked up on his travels.
Because God forbid we not have some racism.
Oh my God, yes. But the dinner, it was so ill-prepared and served with such bad grace that it was barely edible.
I mean, when you do get the answer at the end, it's kind of hilarious that this guy was the cook.
Yes.
Making me do what now? Fine. Here's some ramen noodles.
Yes.
From a package.
And I did notice that the house is called Wisteria Lodge, but we arrived there in these various flashbacks and actual scenes during a time when the wisteria is not growing. So it's just these dormant vines and all these trellises. All
a certain mood.
Yes. Wisteria is so gorgeous. It's one of my favorites. It can be pestilential if you don't groom it.
Yeah, it attaches itself directly to wood, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't twine.
Yep. So those trellises soon become part of the wisteria.
Yeah.
So in this flashback, we see Garcia arguing with a servant named Luis, and Eccles is looking displeased. Garcia's looking at Eccles's maps and walking away from the table. I can assure you, there were many times in the course of the evening I wished I could have invented some excuse to leave. And
there are several horror films with the premise of how far are you willing to let things go because you're afraid of seeming rude.
Right. Oh my God, Shirley Jackson. Full of it.
Yep.
No, manners supersede personal safety.
Exactly.
So we see them discussing the maps, and Garcia's standing by the fire. Eccles asks him if he's all right. Garcia says he is, and he kind of distracts Eccles by calling for Luis to bring more wine. Luis comes into the room with a bottle and is asking in Spanish what's going on, and for Garcia to calm himself because he's attracting undue attention. And just then, the doorbell rings. And in this episode, I will say, unlike the the Six Napoleons, the Spanish is
translated.
Subtitled.
Yes, subtitled. It's not translated.
So I could pause it and go translated, which I couldn't do in that other episode.
I could pick up just enough to know what was being said.
Yeah. Yep.
Even if I was kind of guessing at some of the words.
Yes. Yeah, it was pretty simple Spanish.
Yeah, it really was. And some of them, the girls especially, I think, were not speaking with the Spanish accent.
Mm-hmm. No, they were clearly English girls.
Yes.
Anyway, just then the doorbell rings. Eccles is holding up his wine glass, awaiting his refill. But Luis has gone to the door, still holding the bottle of wine. Are we expecting company? Eccles asks. Luis comes back with a sealed note, which Garcia opens. Eccles kind of flags down Luis. I would like a drink of that, if it's still possible, he said. And Luis obliges while Garcia reads the note. Then Garcia crumples the note up and tosses it into the fire. And he made no remark as to the contents of the note, Holmes asks. None, but from that moment, he gave up all pretense of conversation. He just sat there smoking these endless cigarettes. About 11, I was glad to get to bed. And I will say, as someone with asthma, these smoke-filled rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, back when I was younger and I didn't have asthma, it was not I loved the smell of cigarette smoke. But now I look at these scenes and I just want to start choking.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but that smell never gets out of buildings.
No, never. And that's why when stuff is being sold on eBay and other auction sites, they have to say smoke-free home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically mine is a smoke-free home because I don't smoke and I've been here for 17 years now.
Right.
But you can still every once in a while smell the smoke from a previous owner.
Oh, wow.
It never goes away.
I used to be able to smell it from neighbors' houses when I lived in a house.
That's what I thought it was for the longest time. And it finally occurred to me last year, 16 years in the house.
Oh my God.
Oh no, this was clearly a previous
wow.
who smoked.
I used to find the smell comforting because my grandparents smoked, much to my father's disapproval, but it was the smell of grandpa. And that was nice to me, but yeah, no more. So we see Eccles in his nightshirt and his nightcap in bed. And he's telling Holmes and Watson, 2 hours later, he looked in at my door and Garcia is standing in the doorway of Eccles's bedroom and asking him, did you ring? Did I ring? Eccles says, and he's like fuzzy because he's been asleep. Oh, please don't wake up. It's nearly 1 o'clock. Please go back to sleep. Good night.
Why are you in my room?
Right. Garcia closes the door. And now I come to the amazing part of my tale, Eccles tells Holmes and Watson. And we see him in his nightshirt, getting out of bed. And oh my God, those are some janky toenails. And I mean, thank God he shoves them into his slippers right away because I had to freeze the frame because I was getting some dialogue and I was very unhappy. When I woke, it was broad daylight, nearly 9. I had particularly asked to be called at 8, so I was very much astonished at this forgetfulness.
We'll be giving this Airbnb a 1-star review on Yelp.
And I will not be paying the cleaning fee. So Eccles opens the door to the bedroom. He goes out into the hallway and he's yelling, I say, is anybody here? I'd like some hot water. And he's carrying this ceramic pitcher. He heads down the stairs. I rang for the servant. There was no response. And he keeps shouting and no one's there. Oh, this is damnable. And he runs back upstairs with the pitcher. And he's still holding the pitcher like he expects hot water is going to like materialize in it. He starts knocking on all the doors. I went from room to room. All were deserted. Even my host's room. The bed had never been slept in. Foreign host, foreign footman, foreign cook, all vanished in the night, Watson says. Immediately.
You know you can't trust those foreign devils. Or the Welsh.
Xenophobic. Watson never lets us down. Your experience is, so far as I know, perfectly unique, Holmes says. And Eccles smiles a little bit at this. Now, what else can you tell me? Well, I was furious. I packed my bags and I banged the front door behind me. It's an empty house. And I set out for Esher. So Esher is an ancient town in Surrey. It used to be part of Henry VIII's royal hunting grounds at Hampton Court Palace. In 1908, when the story was written, notable residents included the Duchess of Albany, who had married Queen Victoria's youngest son, Prince Leopold. Prince Leopold died of hemophilia in 1884. But the Duchess lived in this house until 1922.
Wow.
So she had a long life as a widow. Other more recent famous residents include George Harrison and Maurice Gibb of the Bee Gees.
Wow.
Who built a whole studio there. I just find it fascinating that these rock stars, and Mick Jagger did the same thing, they buy these great country estates and live in these hamlets. It's so incredible.
It seems like a good setup for a murder mystery, like Midsummer Murders kind of thing.
Yes, yes.
Oh, rock star moves in and
you totally do that. They already did one with what's her name, Holly Willoughby, she's a daytime TV host. They should totally do that. Oh, and Midsummer Murders comes in later in this episode as well.
Okay.
Tangentially, yes. So Eccles continues as Holmes is changing out of his dressing gown. Then I called at Allen Brothers, the land agents, and found it was from them that the villa had been rented. Rented, Holmes calls from his bedroom. Well, you see, I couldn't believe they had gone simply to make a fool of me. I thought, it must be the rent, but I was wrong. The agent thanked me for my warning, but he said the rent had been paid in advance. By the Spanish embassy, I imagine, Watson says. I called at the Spanish embassy, Eccles says. The man is unknown to them. I also asked my friend who introduced us, and he seemed to know less about Garcia than I did. Holmes comes out of his bedroom wearing his overcoat and a scarf. He places one hand on Eccles' shoulders and one hand on Watson's shoulder. and it's a great little triad they've got there. Now this house, Wisteria Lodge, I wonder if it's still as you left it. And we're in a trap again, this time with Holmes, Watson, and Eccles. What's troubling you, Watson? Holmes asks as the trap goes up the lane to the house. Well, I fear some mundane explanation of the events may await us upon our arrival, Watson says.
Yeah, agreed. I'm agreed at this point. Holmes must be very bored.
Extremely.
It's like the crime is what now?
It's possible. We can thank our lucky fate, which will rescue us for a few hours from the insufferable fatigues of idleness, Holmes says.
Holmes really was that bored.
Yes. And as the trap goes up the road, we see constables faffing about in the bushes by the roadside. At the house, Holmes stands looking at the windows and the exterior while Watson's conferring with the driver. This gentleman recommends the Bull in the village if we're to stay overnight. I asked him if he knew of Garcia or his servants. Did he? Holmes asks. And I'm like, the driver's standing right there. Talk to him. Don't talk around him. But no, the driver did not know of Garcia or his servants. Eccles is craning his neck, looking through the trellis. For some bizarre reason, we see a close-up of his eyeball. I don't know what the cinematographer was thinking.
There are some odd choices in this one.
I feel like I've seen entirely too many of Eccles's body parts. Nothing unusual about the outside. Let's see what the interior holds for us, Holmes says. I don't suppose we could be charged with housebreaking, can we? Watson says. And Holmes, of course, ignores him. They go inside in the small dining room, and it is a really small dining room. There's a table laid out with its enormous wedge of cheese, which...
Yeah, the food is still there from that night.
I honestly, I just wanted to take this cheese and run away. It's so yummy. There's bread. There's some empty...
Miss Watson would be really funny.
Yes. Who on earth could leave such a mess, Watson says, because clearly servants are supposed to take care of this for you.
It happens by magic.
Right. Yes, who indeed, Holmes says. He bends down to the fireplace and then he heads up the stairs, asking Watson to look around as well. But they are interrupted by footsteps coming across the front hall, and everybody freezes. Mr. Holmes, welcome to Wisteria Lodge, Mr. Holmes, the man says. It's Inspector Baynes, the local DI. He introduces Constable Downing, who is standing behind him. Baynes is played by Freddie Jones, who's also in The Elephant Man, the original Dune, and Wild at Heart, which is another David Lynch movie, freaky David Lynch movie with Nicolas Cage. He's also the father of Toby Jones, which is our Midsummer connection. So Toby Jones, we know from being Culverton Smith in BBC's Sherlock. And we also know that he was the voice of Dobby in the Harry Potter movies. He is also the coroner -1 in Midsummer Murders. He was the short guy with the bushy, spiky hair.
Yeah.
Before the woman who, her name is May something. No, May is the name of the character she plays in Ted Lasso. I forget what her real name is, and I follow her on Blue Sky. Anyway, that's the Midsummer connection. Yes. So the Midsummer's coroner's father is the inspector. Anyway, upon ascertaining Scott Eccles' identity, Baynes starts laughing. We've been following you about all the morning. You traced him through his telegram, I presume, Holmes says. Exactly. We picked up the scent at Charing Cross Post Office. What do you want? Eccles wants to know. Why do you follow me? We wish a statement, Mr. Scott Eccles, as to the events which led up to the death of Mr. Aloysius Garcia of Wisteria Lodge near Esher. And Baynes seems almost cheerful.
Yeah, he's like a British Columbo almost.
Mm-hmm.
He's also really good at conveying sarcasm under the guise of affability.
I would say more than sarcasm. He's a little sinister sometimes.
Sometimes.
I thought of Rewcastle from Copper Beaches. That jovial front that's masking something.
Yeah, but I don't feel that Baynes is really masking anything but his own intelligence. Like, he clearly really enjoys his job.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So upon Baynes saying all this, Eccles sits down really hard in the nearest available chair. Sorry, this canker sore is really like interfering. Oh God, this is awful, he says. And you don't mean that I'm suspected? Well, sir, your note was found on the dead man's body, and from it we learned that you planned to stay here in this house last night.
Yeah, that was when I was like, oh yeah, he does sarcasm really well.
Yes.
And because he doesn't appear to be doing sarcasm.
At this point, Baynes sticks his tongue out of the corner of his mouth. Like, he has some really odd mannerisms.
Yeah, he does.
So I did, Eccles says. Oh, you did you? Baynes said. And his mouth is making this really exaggerated O shape. And he turns back to his constable. Wait, Holmes says. Baynes, I mean, surely all you need is a simple statement. Yes, Mr. Holmes, but it is my duty to warn Mr. Scott Eccles that it may be used against him, Baynes says, and he's kind of gleeful. And that's their version of the Miranda.
Right.
Watson emerges from where he's gone deeper into the house, and Holmes introduces him to Baynes and points Watson to Eccles, who's looking distinctly unwell. You look as if you could do with a drink, Watson says, predictably. I found some brandy in the library. If you come with me, I'll show you where it is.
He is a magnet for brandy.
And shouldn't he be bringing the brandy to Eccles as the doctor? But no,
You're a painting person. The brandy is over here.
They're going to go into the library and have some brandy. And then the scene kind of switches. So outside a different house, the two young girls we saw in the opening scene are playing in the yard. One of them is warning the other she's going to get her white dress dirty. They're constantly dressed in white, which is a bad idea for children.
Yeah, especially since they seem to have come from London, and those dresses would not be white in London.
No, but yeah, and one of them saying, you're going to get your dress dirty, and the other one says, in Spanish, she doesn't care. An older man is watching them from a window, and at the top of the house, the woman we saw in the opening is looking out at the girls, and she breaks down in tears. Back at Wisteria Lodge, a man is sneaking around the grounds. He's balding with a mustache. He watches through the library window as Eccles is trying to assure Baynes that he's telling the truth. I'm bound to say, Mr. Scott Eccles, that everything you've said does agree with the facts as they've come to our notice. For example, the note that arrived during dinner, Baynes says. Mr. Scott Eccles, Holmes says. And I mean, again, they're calling him by his full name throughout this entire episode. What became of the note? Well, Garcia rolled it up and threw it in the fire, Eccles says. What do you say to that, Baynes? Holmes says. It was a dog grate, Mr. Holmes. So a dog grate is what's used when a fireplace doesn't have any cast iron fixtures for you to lay the logs on. It's a standalone grate that you buy separately and you put in the fireplace.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of basket shaped.
Yes. And that's why they call it a dog grate, because it looks like a dog bed.
Yeah.
He overpitched it, meaning it fell behind the grate and it wasn't burned. I found this unburned at the back, he says.
Even though we saw it fall in front and under.
We did see this, yes. Continuity. You must have made a very careful examination of the house to find a single pellet of paper, Holmes says. And I don't know. I just felt like there was hostility between the two of them, but maybe okay.
It seemed to be mostly on Holmes's side.
Yeah.
But it's just sort of weird all around, because Baynes is kind of a Holmes in his own way.
That's yes. But there's a vibe there that's not friendly.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's mostly on Holmes's side. And there's a reason for it that I will get to in a little bit. Oh, I did, Mr. Holmes. It's my way. The note's written on ordinary cream-laid paper with a watermark. It's a quarter sheet. The paper's cut off in 2 snips with short-bladed scissors. And as Baynes is reciting this, Holmes is seated at the piano, looking at him with a smirk. It's been folded twice and sealed with scarlet wax. It's addressed to Mr. Garcia, Wisteria Lodge, and it says our own colors, green and white. Green open, white shut. Main stairs, first corridor, 7th right, green bays. Godspeed, D. Holmes gets up from the piano and he approaches Baynes, still smiling. It's in a woman's writing, done with a very sharp pointed pen, but the address is either done by a different pen or by someone else, because it's thicker and bolder, as you may see. And then Baynes hands the note to Holmes. And it is a very Holmesian kind of deduction. It's a remarkable note. I really must congratulate you on your attention to detail. And then Holmes goes on to do his Holmes thing. The seal is a sleeve link, a cuff link. What else is of such a shape? The scissors were bent. Nail scissors, Watson had.
Yeah, really important. How to help them catch the killer.
Truthfully, though, they are the only sorts of scissors a woman of a certain class would have. Short as the two snips are, you can distinctly see the same slight curve in each, Holmes says. Baynes laughs. I thought I had squeezed it dry, Mr. Holmes, but I see there was still some left over after all. I'm bound to say that I make nothing of the note except that there's something on hand, and a woman, as usual, is at the bottom of it. Thank you, Baynes.
Yeah.
The notes, meanwhile, been passed around to all the men in the room. And
We don't believe in fingerprints here.
No. Eccles is the one who finally holds it back out for Baynes to take, and Baynes snatches it from him. And this, I mean, that's where I started thinking of Mr. Rucastle, because there's this underlying aggression.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very glad you found the note, Inspector, Eccles says, because it corroborates my story. But, you know, I do beg to point out that I haven't yet heard what has happened to Mr. Garcia, or what has become of his household. As for Mr. Garcia, that's easily answered. Baynes rustles in his pocket, and he pulls out a packet of candy. And Holmes is staring at Baynes, as Baynes talking. He was found dead on Oxshott Common this morning. Oxshott's a town a little further away from Esher. His head had been beaten to a pulp by a sandbag or some such object, which had crushed rather than wounded. Apparently, he'd first been struck down from behind, but his assailant went on beating him long after he was dead. It was a very furious assault.
A sandbag? Don't we eventually see it's like a cane or something?
It's a slapjack. A happy slapper. It's like a sock filled with marbles. So about this scene, Bending the Willow has a great quote from Brett about this scene, where he's saying, I couldn't quite get hold of Freddie and play with him. I remember there was a scene where he was eating sugar babies, and every time he had a sugar baby, his tongue would go a different color. So I said, can I know before we do a take what color you're going to suck? So I'm ready for it. Bright orange, bright green, black. I just want to know. And he said, no. May I have a sugar baby? I said, no, he said. We couldn't quite see eye to eye. So part of the sort of friction in their interactions. Yeah. Freddie Jones wasn't giving Jeremy Brett dick to play with.
Yeah.
But, you know, in a lot of ways, Freddie Jones was right, because the friction between the actors mimicked the friction between the characters.
Yeah.
And Freddie Jones was trying to throw Brett off of his game a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, Holmes says, this activity that we saw as we approached, were there any footsteps or clues as to the criminal? None as yet, Baynes says. Had Garcia been robbed? Watson asks. At which point we see the reflection of the sneaking mustache man in the library window, this guy who's been sneaking around the house as they've been talking. No sign of robbery, no, Baynes says. Holmes shoots a look out the window, and the sneaking man ducks away. We don't know if Holmes saw him. Well, our tenants seem to have left little or nothing behind them, Holmes says. Apart from the clothes, some pipes, two of them in Spanish, Baynes says.
Holmes is like, yeah, thank you.
and I mean, it pissed him off, right? Because Holmes starts tossing things around.
Exactly.
By the fireplace. He gets down on the floor, sifts through the ashes, like completely. He's wearing a dark suit, you know, whatever. Then he hops up and he looks at the books on the mantle, throws them on the floor.
Somebody's cranky.
Watson picks up a guitar, which Holmes kind of taps dismissively. And then he goes to a cabinet and pulls out a wooden box. Baynes sits down with his back to Holmes, and he eats another piece of candy. One of them is missing, Baynes says, and he's grinning to himself as Holmes opens the box. Inside is a gun. It's large for a handgun, larger than a revolver, very polished wood, silver initials on it. We might assume the G stands for Garcia, Watson says, handling the gun. Family heirloom, perhaps. And so we know that it's one of a pair, that the box is meant to hold two.
Mm-hmm.
The other was not on the body, nor has it been found in the vicinity, though my men are still looking. Do you wish to look around the house, Baynes says, which they had been starting to do before he arrived. Watson, still fooling with the gun, as Holmes disappears deeper into the house. Watson's aiming this gun at various things in the library.
Yeah, he's having a good time playing with a gun.
Yes. And then he finally aims it at the window where he sees the sneaking man. The man stares back at Watson. Watson shouts for Holmes, then races out the side door in pursuit of this sneaking man. The guy climbs up a ladder propped against a retaining wall and then pulls the ladder up behind him as Watson approaches. And the man is laughing. He breaks the ladder into pieces and runs away. Watson somehow manages to make his way up the retaining wall and pursues him, but he has to give up. And Holmes catches sight of Watson and runs outside with Baynes and Eccles behind him. "What have you seen?" Holmes demands. "Could have been the devil for all I know. Staring eyes at the window. Negroid features, mulatto-like."
Yeah, thank you for the racism. Also, eyes at the window. Can you just say something normal? Like, I saw a guy outside the window.
Oh, it gets worse. "He's got away across the field, maybe just as well. I don't think I could have laid hands on him," Watson says, and he's still panting a little bit.
Yeah, despite having actually been quite close behind him.
Yes. Holmes then turns his attention to a large footprint in the dirt. If he is at all the same scale as his foot, then he is certainly a giant, which, again, like dehumanizing people.
Mm-hmm.
"Well, whoever he was, whatever he wanted, he's gone for the present, and we have more important things to attend to," Baynes says. The men go back inside. They put on their overcoats. Baynes is taking Eccles to the station for a statement. "I hope you don't mind my collaborating with you, Inspector," Holmes says. "I'd be honored," Baynes lies. "Inspector, is there any clue as to the exact hour of the man's death?" Holmes asks as they go, back outside. 1 o'clock, Baynes says. "It rained about that time, and death certainly occurred before the rain."
Yeah, it doesn't really explain that.
No.
That seems weird.
Which Eccles also twigs onto. "That's perfectly impossible, Mr. Baynes. No. His voice was very unmistakable. I could swear to it. It was he who addressed me in my room at that very hour. Well, he spoke to me, in that funny accent of his."
Just in case we didn't have enough racism.
I know, yes. He said, "It's nearly 1 o'clock. Remarkable, but we must not confuse the unlikely with the impossible," Holmes says, and Baynes starts cackling. "What does he mean by that?" Eccles says as they continue walking. So they get into Esher. Next to the Bull is the police station. So they're right, next door to each other. The group of them is walking up to the door of the police station as Baynes is talking. "Certainly some strange people occupy that house, Mr. Holmes. One of them is dead. Did some of his companions follow him and murder him? If so, we should have them, for every report is watched. But my views are different, Mr. Holmes. Yes, sir. My views are very different." "You have a theory," Holmes says. "And I'll work it myself, Mr. Holmes," Baynes says, still chewing on his candy. He's addicted to those sugar babies.
Mm-hmm.
"Your name is already made, and I have yet to make mine, and I should like to say afterwards that I solved it without your help." And Holmes smiles politely at Baynes. Holmes looks like he's smelling something unpleasant.
But, I can understand the reasoning.
"Yeah, me too." "Then you do follow your path, and I will follow mine," Holmes says, and all the men shake hands and say goodbye as Eccles follows Baynes into the police station. "Let us consider this note," Holmes says. "Is there a woman involved, a jealous husband? Godspeed D. That must be our guide." And so we see this young woman who's been supervising these girls descending a large wooden staircase. There are numerous portraits hanging all over the walls. She's followed by a mustached man, the man who is watching the girls playing outside, and he's kind of pulling and pushing her around. The man, Watson says, was a Spaniard, obviously. "I suggest that the D stands for Dolores. It's a common female name in Spain." Way to jump to conclusions. "A Spaniard would write to a Spaniard in Spanish," Watson, Holmes points out.
Yeah.
The woman on the stairs starts to faint. She's held up by the mustachioed man. They approach a dining room where a large table is laid. The two little girls in white are there playing with, we have to assume, I don't know, their grandfather, who looks a lot like the younger mustachioed man. Like the two of them look very similar.
Yeah.
The woman sits down and puts her head in her hands, and the girls start fussing over her a little bit. And the grandfather says, "Silencio, niñas." And then he snaps his finger in this ominous, imperious way. So he's like, I don't know, he reminded me of Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. He does look a lot like Marlon Brando.
Yeah, I'm sure it was deliberate.
Yeah.
At the Bull the next morning, Holmes has left a note for Watson. Gone to town, rent 2 bicycles. Watson takes the note and sits down at a small table where Holmes has left a bunch of other scribbles, and he reads them, but they don't make a lot of sense to him. Holmes, meanwhile, is standing by a river, battling a large folding map. Like he has completely lost control of this map. Baynes walks up to him, holding the second gun, looking utterly smug. "Mr. Holmes, look what I found in a gorse bush." "Excellent," Holmes says, and then he turns his back on Baynes.
Baynes looks a little crestfallen.
Yes. He goes down to the riverbank, and he looks to be measuring things with his walking stick. Watson, back at the little table at the Bull, fools around with a small telescope for a minute, and then we see him outside with a hand-drawn map of the area. He's walking around the pathways that are noted on this map, and he arrives at the house where the girls are playing outside with the dog. Watson catches sight of the young woman in a high window, looking through the little telescope, and he sees her making a gesture of distress.
Yeah, she's waving at him like, hey, you.
"I need help here." So, of course, it's Watson. His sense of chivalry kicks in immediately. He's looking out at the grounds when the girls attack him. They jump all over him.
This was ridiculous.
On his shoulders, on his back, and they drag him back to the house. The younger mustached man asks the girls what's going on, and they tell him Watson was spying.
And they're still on him like barnacles.
Yes. And the younger man shoos the girls away, asking them why they let Watson in. "Senor, you are trespassing," the man tells Watson. "I'm sorry, I seem to have lost my direction," Watson says. "Is it your custom to wander?" "Ah!" And this is Holmes, already in the house. "Dr. Wakefield, my friend and fellow cartographer." Watson's like shocked to see him. "Yes, indeed," Watson says. So he's got to get into character immediately. "We were so engrossed in trying to chase the bridle path to a now vanished hamlet of Obligar St. Mary that we mislaid one another. And since we're late for Mr. Henderson, I thought, I'm so glad you found your way here," Holmes says. "I very much regret that Mr. Henderson is too busy to see you today," the Spanish man says. "No, Lucas," says the grandfather from the top of the stairs. "I will see you."
Which in closed caption rendered as "I see you will."
The translation's terrible. It's worse than AI, which is saying something.
Yeah.
So the man comes down the stairs, he walks to a door, and then stands in front of it, waiting for Lucas to open it. The men go inside. It's a large room where there's this kind of throne.
Yeah, and there's like nothing in there but a couple of chairs.
Right. Henderson sits down in this throne. Holmes is sitting in a velvet chair across the room from him. Watson's standing behind him, and then the younger Spanish man is standing at the door as if to guard it. "The purpose of our visit is to inquire into the history of High Gable, which we believe has an intriguing and bloodthirsty past since the days of the English Civil Wars," Holmes says. "I would have no knowledge of that. I'm only a recent invader," Henderson says, kind of ominously. And Holmes laughs at this. "But there are local records in the library," meaning the library of the house, not like the public library. "There are no records of any past violence in this house," Henderson says. And I noticed then he's got this large ruby ring on one hand.
Mm.
And I mean, the chairs are upholstered in red. It's just like a big red, like, scene.
Yeah.
And the younger man opens the door, and the suggestion that Holmes and Watson should leave is quite loud, if unspoken.
Yes.
I see, Holmes says, getting up from his chair, and he does kind of a dramatic thing with his cane, like he drags it across the floor. Then I will detain you no more. And he and Watson leave, followed by the younger man. I thought you were in London, Watson says, as they leave the house. For the morning only, Holmes says. Well, with your usual reluctance to confide your thoughts to me, I exercise my own mind in the matter. You'd circled 2 names on your list, Henderson and High Gable, Watson says. Well, the others are prosaic, respectable people, far aloof from romance. But this man, Henderson, he's a very singular creation. So back at the Bull in their rooms, Watson's sitting down to tea. He's got a large cake sitting on the table. Holmes, as usual, declines to have anything. He's leaning against a large support beam in the middle of the room. As you may have noticed, Holmes says, the house is double-winged. One side for the servants, the other side for the family. There's one single connecting door for the Henderson family meals. Surely you couldn't have observed all that in the short time we were there, Watson says. And Holmes starts walking around the beam, holding onto it with one arm, like a child spinning around a pole. I used to do this in the basement of my parents' house when I was like 7. You hold on to the support beam and just whip yourself around. There are no better instruments for gossip than discharged servants, and I was lucky enough to find one who had been sacked by his imperious master Henderson in a fit of violent temper, Holmes says. Now, the Henderson girls, with whom you've encountered, have a governess, a Miss Burnett, an Englishwoman. Here is the very singular fact. She has not been seen since the night of the murder. She has utterly vanished. I've seen her, Watson says. Of course, I've seen her and she is alive. I saw her at the windows at High Gable. My God, a prisoner. She slipped my mind the moment those awful Gorgons descended upon me. She's alive and I've seen her. And the girls were not Gorgons. They were...
My mind.
Those girls were cute. They were not Gorgons. I take issue with that classification.
They were barnacles.
And also, yes, how could a gorgeous young woman slip Watson's mind? Out the window, we see that the police are bringing someone into the station next door. That's the man I saw and chased, Watson exclaims. Baynes has arrested the wrong man. Come, Watson, quickly. We must stop him. The man is struggling against the police. He appears to have bitten off one constable's thumb.
Yeah.
The constable's hands are like covered in blood. The press are yelling questions at Baynes. It's a scene of complete and utter chaos.
I did wonder why the press was there. Like, this is a small town and nobody even knows what crime has been committed, really.
Oh, I bet they had stringers, though, you know. The tabloids, even back then, the tabloids were everywhere, and they had their little deputies. And don't forget, there were telegraph lines.
Yeah, that's true.
This man is the murdered man's cook who disappeared on the night of the crime, Baynes tells the newspaper.
In quotation marks. We've seen his cooking.
Yeah, yes. We believe there were valuables left in the house and that their abstraction was the motive. The man had been seen in the vicinity of the house once before. And the man continues to struggle, and Baynes is yelling at the constables to subdue him. Holmes and Watson arrive at the door. The second time, Baynes is saying, we left an ample escape for him. We shall be applying for remand when the prisoner is brought before the magistrate. That will be all for now, gentlemen. Thank you very much. And we see the shadows of the constables battling with the arrested man.
Yeah, the whole time Baynes is talking.
And it just reminded me of like some of the more sinister scenes in the movie M, which is about a serial killer of children in Berlin, with Peter Lorre playing the serial killer. Most of the crime happens in shadows, like shadow puppets.
Yeah, it's a very old film. It's what, 20s, 30s? So they're not going to show the murders on screen.
So Holmes is looking extremely perturbed at all of this. Baynes, I'm not convinced you're on the right line, Holmes says. Mr. Holmes doesn't want you to commit yourself too far unless you're sure, Watson interjects quickly.
Because Holmes needs a translator.
Oh, you're a very kind gentleman, but we did agree to work our own lines, didn't we? And that's what I'm doing. You're welcome, always, to my news. This fellow is as strong as a cart horse and fierce as the devil. He nearly bit off Constable Downing's thumb before they managed to master him. He speaks hardly any English, and we can get nothing out of him but grunts. So, the savage beast stereotype.
Yeah.
And you think, Holmes says, that you have evidence that he murdered his late master. I didn't say so, Mr. Holmes. I didn't say so.
We picked him up for being foreign.
Right. Oh, I shouldn't laugh like that, though, because that's what's happening here now.
Yep.
Baynes walks up to Holmes. He's pretty much in Holmes's face at this point. We all have our own little ways. You will go yours and I will go mine. That was the agreement. And Holmes looks mad. But all he says is, so be it. And he walks out of the station. I think Baynes is running for a fall, he tells Watson as they walk back to the inn. I would have to agree with you there, Watson says. So in Wisteria Lodge, we see Luis, the butler, from like the first part of the episode. His face is partly hidden by a scarf, and he's coming into the library of Wisteria Lodge. He goes to the cabinet with the gun box, and he pulls out the other handgun. Meanwhile, Holmes and Watson are riding the bicycles that Watson's managed to rent. There's nothing upon which we can apply for a warrant, Holmes is saying, and with our worthy inspector making his arrests, our theory would seem fantastic if laid before the magistrate. Yet you think the lady's in danger of her life, Watson says. Yes, I'm sure of it, Watson. Therefore, we must take the law into our own hands. Not for the first time.
Yep.
So they hide the bikes in the bushes and start scoping out the house. Watson points out where he last saw Miss Burnett. A carriage pulls up. Miss Burnett is being hustled into it by the younger man. Henderson comes out behind them and gets in the carriage as well. The two of them are like sitting on either side of her, propping her up, and they drive off. And just a note here, Miss Burnett is played, this is fascinating to me, by Kika Markham, who is married to Corin Redgrave, Vanessa and Lynn's brother, son of Michael. Yes.
Wow.
Corin Redgrave died of prostate cancer about a year after his niece, Natasha Richardson, died in a skiing accident.
Wow.
And like her husband, Kika Markham comes from a prominent acting and playwriting family. So these two actors have like lineage, which I love.
Wow.
Holmes and Watson start running after the carriage. Then they snatch up the bikes and they follow. Holmes thinks they're headed for the train station to catch the 5 o'clock train to London. It's not quite a car chase. It's a carriage and bike chase.
Yeah.
While Miss Burnett lolls around in the carriage like she's been drugged. At the station, Henderson lifts Miss Burnett out of the carriage and practically shoves her onto the train. Holmes and Watson arrive. As Holmes tries to stop the train, he's like banging on the windows up by the conductors. Miss Burnett opens her compartment door and she falls into Watson's arms. I'm sure to Watson's gratification. Watson lays her down onto the train platform. Holmes, meanwhile, finds Henderson and he whacks the tip of his walking stick against the compartment window, cracking the glass. And the look on Holmes's face as the train pulls away is absolutely thunderous.
Yeah. How dare this train not stop when I ordered it to?
I just I've never seen Holmes so mad. So back at the Bull, Watson is seeing to Miss Burnett, who is lying slumped on a chaise, as ladies were wont to do. Baynes comes into the room, burbling about how he and Holmes were on the same scent from the start. Were you after Henderson too? Holmes says. Quite so well. You first, and then Dr. Watson here came crawling through the undergrowth at a high gable. I was up a tree observing you both. It was just a question of who got the evidence first, Baynes says.
Picturing Baynes up in a tree while all that was going on is really funny.
The This is my note. The day Baynes believably climbs a tree is the day I eat not just his hat, but Holmes and Watson's hats too.
Well, he had his constable there, and the constable brought a ladder, and he climbed up the ladder to
Oh my God. Why did you arrest the mulatto? Watson asks Baynes. Well, I was sure that Henderson, as he calls himself, felt he was suspected and he would make no move as long as he thought he was in danger. So I arrested the wrong man. You know you will rise high in your profession, Inspector. You have instinct and intuition, Holmes says, which I thought was more than generous of him.
Yeah.
Given how supercilious Baynes has been treating him. Thank you, Mr. Holmes, but we can't arrest without Miss Burnett's evidence, can we? Baynes says. Oh, she'll be able to give you that in a moment, Watson says. But tell me, who is this man Henderson? He is Don Murillo, known as the Tiger of San Pedro, Baynes says. One of the most dangerous men out of Central America, Holmes adds. Oh, yes, a most lewd and bloodthirsty tyrant, Baynes says. Who imposed his earliest vices on a cowering people for almost 12 years, Holmes says. So they both know what's up. It's worth noting here, there's a jazz song called The Tiger of San Pedro.
Oh, really?
By John La Barbera, who was a trumpet player and composer who worked with Buddy Rich. So this song was recorded by jazz trombonist Bill Watrous for an album of the same name, released in 1975, nominated for a Grammy.
Wow.
It was a direct response to Chick Corea's composition, Spain, which was released in 1973, which in turn was inspired by Joaquin Rodrigo's Concierto de Aranjuez, which, in a really amazing coincidence, happened to be playing on WQXR as I was writing up my notes for this episode.
It's all connected.
I think I have to have paella for dinner. And yeah, the piece was named after this story. In the liner notes, La Barbera says, I've always been a huge Sherlock Holmes fan.
Aww.
And I've used the stories as titles for many of my works. Maybe I'm endeared to Holmes because in the stories, he was an improviser, creating original melodies on his Stradivarius violin. I was like, oh,
that's so cute.
Yes.
I love it.
So Baynes, meanwhile, is asking Holmes, was it the San Pedro colors, green and white, that first put you onto it? That and my visit to London, to the Spanish embassy and the Foreign Office. Now, please, this is your case, Inspector, Holmes says. 5 years ago, there was a rising against the tyrant, but it was an empty palace they stormed, for Murillo, his secretary, 2 children, and all the wealth had escaped by ship, and from that moment they disappeared from the face of the earth, Baynes says. His identity has been a subject of constant comment in the European press, Holmes says. So, of course, as a committed xenophobe, Watson doesn't read the European press.
Of course.
He would have no idea who this guy is.
It's been front page news in the European press for like 3 years now.
Right, but no. Got to read the British tabloids. So Miss Burnett at this point starts to stir on her chaise. We discovered him a year ago, she pipes up. How came you into this matter, Miss Burnett? Watson wants to know. An English lady in such a murderous affair. How very dare she? Because there is no other way. Oh, sorry. I just lost my place in my notes. There's no other way in the world by which justice can be gained, she says. What does the law of England care about the rivers of blood shed so many years ago in San Pedro or the shipload of treasure this man has stolen from us?
And Watson says nothing. We don't care anything about it.
Well, exactly. Yes. And she says to you, they're like crimes committed on some other planet. Yep. But we know. And she sits up. My real name is Senora Victor Durando. My husband was the minister of San Pedro in London. He met and married me there. A nobler man never lived upon the earth.
Yeah, and she's saying, I'm Mrs. husband's first and last name.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which, yeah.
You would expect back then.
Yeah, I have no identity of my own.
No. Unhappily, Murillo heard of his excellence and recalled him on some pretext and shot him. By a stroke of premonition, my husband had refused to take me with him. Then came the downfall of the monster. He escaped, as you have described, but the many whose lives he has ruined, whose loved ones have suffered torture and death at his hands, would not let the matter rest. And we see Henderson and Miss Burnett in a carriage headed to High Gable. We banded ourselves into a society which should never be dissolved until the work was done. It was my part to attach myself to his household and keep the others in touch with his movements. I
needed a logo or something that could have been on a paper that was dropped strategically somewhere. They're really not doing the secret society thing well.
No. As we know from the Six Napoleons, or
kind of four. Yes, Sherlock Holmes story.
And she says, I secured the position as governess. And we see them again at the dinner table at High Gable. Henderson is saying in Spanish that the girls are the light of his eyes. So I guess he's not the grandfather, he's the father. It was very confusing because they don't name any of these characters until the end of the episode.
Yeah. And there's no wife anywhere.
No. He probably killed her too. He little knew that the woman who faced him at every meal was the woman whose husband he had hurried to eternity. I smiled on him, did my duty to his children, and bided my time. An attempt was made in Paris and failed. We zigzagged here and there, swiftly over Europe to throw off our pursuers, and finally returned to High Gable. Garcia had been waiting there for nearly a year with 2 trusted companions, all fired with the same reasons for revenge. Who is Garcia? Watson asks, which, yeah, high time someone asked that question. The son of Fernando Garcia, Holmes says, and he turns to Miss Burnett. One of the former highest dignitaries of San Pedro who was murdered like your husband. This note you said it was intercepted. During the day, Murillo took every precaution, Burnett says. Never went out save with his satellite, Lucas, who is the younger man, with a mustache who looks almost identical to Murillo. Mm-hmm. Even at night, the man was forever on the alert and continually changed his room. We had arranged I would send Garcia final instructions. The doors would be opened, and the signal of a green or white light in a window which faced the drive was to give notice if all was safe or if the attempt had better be postponed. And then we see Henderson / Murillo attacking Miss Burnett, gagging her as she finishes writing the note. He throws her to the floor, and I guess she goes unconscious because when she opens her eyes again, she sees Murillo in uniform with dozens of medals on his chest, and he's sitting on the throne-like chair, so they've moved rooms. To whom are you writing this letter, he demands, and she yells incoherently. Which describes the room in which I intend to sleep tonight. Who is your confederate? Who is your confederate? And she's screaming and yelling and not answering him. What is your real name, Miss Burnett? My name is Durando, she says, and she's coughing the gag out of her mouth. Durando's widow, in my house, close to my children.
I feel like the way they're describing him, he'd have killed so many people that he'd be like, you're whose widow? What?
Right. And Murillo and Lucas are arguing in Spanish, and she calls out, you can kill me now. Don't leave me out. What is my life worth? You have destroyed everything that I love. Lucas is bending over her. Who are you writing to? Tell me, Senor Durando. Who? It's a name you fear. He's waiting for you, she says.
Oh my God, shut up.
I know, right? Like, get to the point. Lucas is brandishing a very, very pointy knife at her face, like above her eyes. Garcia, she whispers.
I mean, are you ready to meet my death? I have a knife. Oh, okay, it's this guy. She gives out this guy right away. She's a horrible spy.
Horrible. Garcia, Murillo says, and he looks unnerved. Lucas has scratched a small hole in Miss Burnett's throat. Donde? He demands. Donde? Wisteria Lodge. He is waiting to dispatch you to hell, you fiends, she says. But I will say this is a pretty amazing shot. She's lying in the light of a cross-shaped window.
Yeah, so they do a Jesus thing with Garcia later.
She's looking very sacrificial as Lucas hovers over her with the dagger.
Yeah, she's looking very sacrificial as she's completely giving up her Confederate.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is his name. You can find him
You
here.
find him here. Maria starts walking towards the door. I know the boy well. His father was once my dearest friend, he says. You murdered him, she shouts. He betrayed me, and so did your husband, Maria says. Lucas is laughing menacingly. And now they send the wives and sons. Will you never learn I am indestructible? So Miss Burnett tells Holmes and company. At first, they were of a mind to let him into the house and kill him as a detected burglar, but they feared the inquiry might publicly expose them. So we see the scene where Garcia receives the note, throws it behind the fire, not into it in this scene. Then we see Miss Burnett again, and her throat's like really bloody by this point. Her dress is still undone, and she's throwing herself to the floor in distress. Like I just, these 1980s scenes of damsel in distress. It's just, yeah.
It's also, she also has a mullet.
Yes.
It's a really awful wig.
At Wisteria Lodge, Garcia is preparing to go kill Murillo, as per Miss Burnett's note. He's kissing his handgun and saying, all for one and one for all with his compadres. Lucas and Henderson attack him in the woods on the way to Wisteria Lodge. Henderson beats him over the head repeatedly with his slapjack, and then shoots Garcia with his own gun, dropping it in the river, which is not a gorse bush, which is where Baynes...
No, he must have dropped the slapjack at the river because he did toss the gun.
Oh, okay. I missed that. Yeah.
I missed him tossing something in the river. So between us, we're covered.
Okay. Garcia, someday justice will come, Miss Burnett whispers, fingering one of the flowers on the windowsill back at the bowl. That is as certain as the rise of tomorrow's sun. And she turns back to the men. I have no doubt that my life, too, hung in the balance. Most of the time I was confined to my room, terrorized by the most...
They just kill her.
I know! Horrible threats to break my spirit. Occasionally I was allowed out, but only when they had first drugged my food, and it was in this state that you found me at the station. And thanks to this good man, I am beyond their power forever. And she collapses back onto the chaise, and Watson...
Well, they haven't been arrested yet, so...
No.
Picking a little prematurely.
This is pathetic.
Yes.
So at the door of their room at the Bull, Holmes is saying, well, Inspector, our police work is done, but our legal work begins. Exactly, Mr. Holmes, yes. Garcia's death in the hands of a plausible lawyer could look like an act of self-defense, Baynes says. I think better of the law than that, Watson chimes in. Self-defense is one thing, but to entice a man in cold blood with the object of murdering him is another, whatever danger you fear from him.
Well, yeah, but then the defense lawyer would just hold up the note and say, he didn't write this.
Yes, yeah, no, right. I think we shall see justice done at the next Guildford Assizes. The Guildford Assizes was the local court in Surrey. Mm-hmm. They don't have them anymore. They're all crown courts, but back then, each shire had its own court.
Yeah, a little like, was it like a traveling court?
Yes.
Or town
second? Yes, like an itinerant preacher. Yes. Yeah. Of course, you have released the mulatto, Holmes says, pointing at Baynes. Oh, yes, sir. He's a free man again, Baynes says. And your man is with the fugitives on the train, Holmes says. He is, sir, and I've wired Scotland Yard to have their men at Waterloo Station to receive them, yes. Baynes is putting on his hat and preparing to leave. You know, I really must congratulate you, Inspector, Holmes tells him. Your powers, if I may say so, without offense, are superior to your opportunities. And Baynes laughs, that horrible, creepy laugh of his. You're right, Mr. Holmes. In the provinces, we stagnate. A case like this gives a man a chance. And then we see the train going into a tunnel. Murillo and Lucas are in their compartment. Luis, who had gone and got the other gun, sticks the gun into the compartment window, and he shoots them both. And then the episode ends.
Yeah,
Okay. One way or another, justice is done.
presumably.
Right. Yeah, there's no like comforting ending here.
No.
um, they're not like back at 221B having tea with Mrs. Hudson.
Yeah, there's something kind of, it feels like the plot is kind of slapdash in this one. And I'm not even blaming Granada for this. I think I'm blaming Doyle.
Oh, this was apparently one of the hardest episodes to adapt.
Oh, I bet.
It took the screenwriter, I was reading in Bending the Willow, it took him like 9 to 10 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Which was about a third as long as he normally spent.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm not really sure why, but because the story is not that different. And the annotated actually gave me nothing to use for this episode.
Yeah, there's just an odd feeling about it because it starts off so innocuous and then you find out there's this huge elaborate thing that's been going on, and it's not that hasn't happened before, but with this one for some reason it seems like maybe it's just Miss Burnett being the one to explain it all, that Holmes and Watson were over here and meanwhile there was a really intricate story happening over here.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And before this episode, we were talking about how this is probably the last time the stories are going to be made faithful to the original, because of how problematic the original stories are.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder that the adaptations kind of depart from all of this. Not that they escape the problematic parts.
Right.
We were talking about the blind banker in the BBC Sherlock, which is okay, hella problematic.
Yeah.
And I don't think that any English person will be ever sufficiently washed of the racism.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not going to see these kinds of things remade like this ever again.
Yeah, which also makes sense from the standpoint of actors and directors, because the really faithful adaptations have been, that's been done. That's
Yeah,
Granada series is.
Yeah.
And I think if you're an actor and a director, you want to bring something new to the table.
You want to innovate
instead of just, oh, here's the new Jeremy Brett.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I remember this interview with Benedict Cumberbatch's mother, who was also an actress, Wanda Bentham.
Yeah.
She was pretty famous in the 60s, where they were asking her, did you ever see your son like portraying Sherlock Holmes? And she said, no, his nose is all wrong. Like, that's such a mother thing to say. But yeah, it really was the last gasp of empire and colonial representation, I think. They couldn't get away with it now, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm watching something now. It's called Professor T.
Okay.
And it's on, I'm getting it on PBS, but it's I don't know if it's Granada or ITV or BBC or what. It's a British production. And it stars the guy who played Lord Featherington in Bridgerton. And it's, it's not ever going to win any Emmys or BAFTAs or anything. It's a comforting, it's a sweet little show. He plays a sort of monk-like, remember Monk, the series? Yeah. So he's got he's got to wash his hands all the time, and he wears latex gloves constantly. And he's a professor at Cambridge of, I don't know, criminology or something. I don't even know if they have a criminology program at Cambridge. He's got a sumptuous office, because of course he does. And his own secretary, who, no, academia.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, it's cozy.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain is shot at the end of the day these days. And so I've been welcoming this. And yeah, they're really kind of keeping up with the times. Like the last episode I watched, there was the primary character in the mystery was a young woman with Down syndrome.
Oh,
Yeah. And the actress, of course, had Down syndrome. And that's the third actor with Down syndrome I've seen in British shows. There's, there's, oh, what is his name? In Call the Midwife. He's a sweetie. I love him. There was that remake of Upstairs, Downstairs, which got superseded by Downton Abbey, but the remake of Upstairs, Downstairs is so good. Came out in 2010. It stars Tom Stoppard's son.
really?
Yes. And he's got a jawline like made to be a superhero.
Oh, wow.
And Keely Hawes as his wife, and Keely Hawes' sister is Claire Foy before The Crown.
Mhm.
She plays a total brat. And there's a Callum's sister has Down syndrome. She was put away, a lot like the cousins of the Queen were
Mhm.
put away. And the show was, I mean, I guess they discovered that in like the 80s, and the show came out in 2010. So it's kind of, there's a reference.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, there representation in British TV is so much better.
Yeah, there's a new-ish show called, I think it's called Patience.
Oh,
About
yes.
An autistic
You were
woman
yes.
played by an autistic actress.
Awesome. That's awesome. There's the show The Pit
Mhm.
on HBO. And one of the doctors is clearly neuroatypical.
Mhm.
Clearly. I mean, it's like Klieg lights, clearly. And they never say a word about it. She is who she is, and she does
Nice.
great work, and that's all they care about.
Nice.
Yeah. The actress also happens to be Bryan Cranston's daughter. Yes. I guess I'm really big on tracing genealogies through acting. Anything else to say about this episode?
Well, that's all from us this week. If you've enjoyed the show and haven't subscribed yet, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to support us, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends and join us next week when we'll be discussing the Bruce Partington plans.
A sweet one. That's a great one.
Yeah, we'll get to see Mycroft again.
We get to see Mycroft again. All right. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.